Welcome back, ranters and rantettes. I've got a creature feature for you. We are going to be looking at Wolfman, which is in cinemas right now, directed by Leigh Whannell. But before we get into that, you know what comes up first.
Welcome to the Light, Camera, Rant Podcast. Your source for the latest on movies, TV shows, and video games. Get ready for ranting, raving, and reviewing. Here is your host, Leigh.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Lights, Camera, Rant. As always, I'm your wonderful host, Mr. Rant, and we are going to be diving into Wolfman. And I would like to say thank you very much to Universal Pictures for the early screening invite, which was fantastic and a little bit more special than the last few ones I've gone to, because Leigh Whannell and his team were actually at this premiere, which is usually, in LA or somewhere else overseas, which was meant to be in LA. However, due to the LA fires, they didn't have the premiere, so this was the premiere, and I got to meet him. This man is one of the masterminds behind the Saw franchise, the Insidious franchise. I was so starstruck when I got a chance to go meet him. Spoke to him briefly, great guy, and got to talk about the movie, which was an awesome opportunity, and I'm very thankful for Universal. So this film, how can I put this? This film has basically been in development for 11 years. I'm going to pull your minds right back to nearly 10 years ago when the Universal had the balls to be like, here is the dark universe. We are going to be making our shared universe of all of our monster franchises. The Mummy, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, and we're going to put them in one big universe. Which, unfortunately, they did reboot The Mummy with Tom Cruise, which was an absolute commercial failure, both in box office and reviews. And basically, they pulled the plug right there and then. But the stories that were still in development, they just shifted to more an individual story, and just kept them by themselves. Now, since then, we really haven't had much. But it's hard because they did a full photo op. They had the cast. They were going to go gun ho, and basically after one movie, they're like, nah, done. So this movie has been shifted through different directors, different cast members. Originally, it was Ryan Gosling that was meant to be the main guy in this, which is insane. But he dropped out. The director dropped out due to scheduling conflicts because this has been in development for so long. So Leigh Whannell took over both directing and writing. So this would be a fresh retelling of the classic Wolfman story. So this movie is set in Oregon, and we're at the very start of the film, which we're going to go into spoilers, so there is massive spoiler territory. So the way the film starts off with, it's set in present day. We get a flashback to the 90s, where we can see a young Blake, who's the main character for this movie, and Sam, his dad. Now, unfortunately, both of them have a little bit, Grady, his dad's name's Grady, sorry, Sam's the actor. They have a little bit of a strange relationship. He really wants to make sure his son's safe because there is a monster in the woods. Now, right before we actually do see the dad and the son, is that we do get some exposition stating the fact that a man has gone missing in the woods and possibly has become a monster due to some disease that's local to the forest. Now, the opening scene is very intense between both the relationship between Blake and his dad, the initial hunt and scare of what the beast could be. You feel the tension right off the bat in the beginning of this film. And then, after Close Encounter, we go straight 30 years in the future, and we meet Blake again, who's currently living in San Francisco with his wife, Charlotte, and his daughter, Ginger. His wife's played with Julia Gardner, and Matilda Fifth plays his daughter, which we do see, due to her nearly falling off into the road, we do get to see Blake's a little bit anger issues, which is stemmed from his father. So, of course, something's going to happen to get them to go both to the family farm in Oregon. So his dad dies, so they all moved into there. But when we do get to see the family, we do see that they're very tight with their careers. There's tension in the family. It's this is pretty much the weekend We go away and we try to get back together. And, there's no, it's not a. It's very, very typical of a horror movie, but hey, something's going to happen to get everybody there. So basically, where his dad's farm is in Oregon, it's basically in the middle of nowhere, and it's in this massive forest. So you can tell what's going to happen. So they go out there, take the truck to go all the stuff, and come out and go away. So what they do is when they're driving up there, Blake gets a little bit lost. They bump into a guy who owns a property nearby. He looks quite shaken. He's like, "Oh, welcome back, Blake. It's been a long time." Like mysterious as it's going to be. So he says, "Oh, I'll take you. I'll take exactly where your dad's property is. Just get in the car. It looks like an absolute creep, and let's go." So when he gets in the car, they start driving on. Of course, as they're driving, boom. Something's right in the middle of the road. Blake swears off and turns into a crash. And that crashes, and this is where really the movie starts going into that horror aspect. So we see that the friend dies. He gets taken by the monster. The monster does scratch Blake. And what slowly happens is as they get to the house, the monster, which we do see glimpses of the monster, it isn't until later on until we get a full look at the monster, which the aesthetics in this movie are fantastic. The transformation scenes, because Blake turns into the Wolfman because of the disease and because he's been scratched, that's fantastic. That slow transition. Not to mention, this entire movie happens in over 2 days. So 3 days. The day where his son 30 years back, the day that he gets they're going to go on the trip, and the actual main story only happens at night. In a few hours, in the space of like 8 hours, even less this happens to, as he transforms. Transformation scenes, as mentioned, are basically pure horrific. Sorry. How it goes, nails come off, jaw breaking, like classic horror, which as this is going on, that looks fantastic. The tension is rising in this film. It's definitely a film that it's not so much going into the massive story of it all. The story is probably the weakest point. You're really there for the horror. You're there for the monster. You're there for the tension. You see the transformation. There's a fantastic scene where there's a perspective where Blake is looking at his wife, Charlotte, and what we do is the camera pans around and gives a 360, and we see from Blake's point of view, we see the world of what he sees as being this Wolfman, which I think is a fantastic aspect of this movie. It only happens twice throughout twice throughout the film. I was just trying to think because there's only twice, but it's one of the most refreshing things that you see in this film. So that's fantastic. And basically comes the fact that even though he's transforming, until the very last transformation, he's still aware that this is his family and his daughter and the family drama. He doesn't want to hurt them. He does fight the original wolf that starts attacking them at the very start. He finds out that's his father, and it's almost like destiny that you were meant to be the next wolf man, if you will. And it becomes very sad at the end as the tension builds. It's obviously climactic of what happens. I mean, I think you know what's going to happen. He's going to die. But even that is very, very sad, and very sad in what we see. But the music behind this, the tension is good. Now, this film isn't going to be something that's going to break box office records like millions and millions. This is one of those stories that like a fresh retelling of a classic horror story that needs to be done. When you see a new piece of paper with fresh eyes, and they nail this. Now, as I said, this might not be everyone's cup of tea. There are things between. Like I mentioned, the fact that the story is probably the weakest thing out of the whole thing. There's also a great line in it that was like a little bit of nugget when Blake's talking to his daughter. It was like, I don't know, parents try so much not to give their kids scars. They become a scar themselves. And I said to Mark, who came with me from Mark My Words, I was like, okay, that's a great dad quote out of nowhere. I was like, all right, that's really cool. But yeah, this film is, if you're a horror fan, I recommend going and seeing this. It's not, it's not terribly bad. It's not, like I said, it's not a 1 star, it's not a 2 star. I give it 3 stars. I jumped probably about 4 times the whole thing because, horror, I get scared easy because of horror flicks, thanks to my sister. But I highly recommend. So this movie is currently with only a $25 million budget to make this film. It's currently made $2 million at the box office in its first week, which is just this week, which is good. So hopefully there'll be more of it, but I highly recommend it. Leigh has done a great job in directing, writing a story on what it could be, and it's a fresh retelling. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but I still think they did a fantastic on getting that Wolfman aspect. Iconic transformation scenes, which we've seen in multiple different versions of the film throughout the many years, but it's definitely something worth giving a watch to, and you won't miss a single beat. And look, that's my review of Wolfman. Definitely go check it out. Let me know in the comments. Did you hate it? Did you love it? Did you love the transformation? Or were you really scared? Let me know and let's chat about it. So as always, until next time, happy ranting.
Thanks for listening to Lights, Camera, Rant. If you like the show, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. While you're at it, leave us a rating and review, and be sure to tell your friends. Until next time, happy ranting.